Today is the fourth installment of the Search Inside Yourself curriculum. So the curriculum is very robust, and so I'm just trying to give you a flavor for the key themes that we cover in the Search Inside Yourself curriculum. So what I want to do first is start with a moment of mindfulness to sort of center ourselves and bring ourselves to this present moment. Notice how that pause, only for 2 minutes, it really makes a difference in how you feel. You're in a different space now than you were 2 minutes ago, right? So this is something that you can always access during your day. It doesn't have to be for 2 minutes. It can just be for 2 or 3 breaths. But always something that you can remind yourself to come back to this moment right here, right now. So, next slide, Anne. So this is a slide I show every time for your reference. This work is based on a New York Times best-selling book called Search Inside Yourself by Chade-Meng Tan. So Dr. Tan is an engineer at Google, was an engineer at Google, and he developed this course for Google, and thinking that mindfulness could really help his colleagues and help the company at Google be more creative, be more productive, and feel better about their work. And so what he did was bring in all the experts, the best minds in the field, in the areas of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and neuroscience, and help develop this course. And so he, being Google, they could bring in, all the biggest names in the world, literally. So starting with the Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, Jon Kabat-Zinn, Daniel Goleman, and together they developed this course. So now the course is the most, and it actually continues to this day to be the most popular course at Google. It's sold out within an hour or so after they announce when the course is going to be. And this book was published in 2012, so it's been going for 5 years. And now Meng, as he is known, actually left Google and started his own institute called the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, based in San Francisco. And he's now teaching this course throughout to students and also training teachers throughout the world. They've taken this show to Australia, to Europe, and to all parts of this country. So actually, I'm in the process of being trained as a Search Inside Yourself instructor. So I went last year for a couple weeks. This past summer, I went for 5 days, and then I'm now going back for more teacher training in February. Plus, we have all this online work, watching videos, reading, etc. It's like, so in my spare time. But I really believe in this work. I think it is the best combination of these particular subjects that has the broadest applicability to those of us in healthcare, and both clinical and non-clinical. So that's what I was really looking for when I was looking to expand my mindfulness practice personally and professionally, but also to teach this work and spread this throughout healthcare. So I just didn't think that it would be helpful to come and talk to you and say, you all have to meditate for 45 minutes every day. That's the key. So you guys would look at me like with glazed eyes and say, yeah, right, we're not doing that. So what can we do, in small increments, in small bites, to help make this work in healthcare easier, more productive, safer, and feel better about it? Next slide. And the other thing I would say is, so Meng's, first he wanted to improve things at Google, and after he really thought about it and talked with all these world leaders, he decided, okay, now my goal, my modest goal is world peace. And so the man's been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And he's addressed the United Nations, he's addressed the European Council. I mean, he's really, his work has really caught on and caught the imagination of many people around the world. All right, so today's topic is empathy. So let's watch a short video about empathy, the difference between empathy and sympathy. So, next slide.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So, what did you think of that? Have you thought about that difference between empathy and sympathy? I'll tell you, my wife tells me not every day, but most days, don't try to correct it, just listen to what I'm saying. I always try to offer some other alternative worldview, and she's like, no, don't do that. Just listen to what I'm saying. How often do we do that? I thought one of the best lines in that was, rarely does a response fix things. We have to remember that in healthcare, because we like fixing things. That's our job, right? And we think that we can say things that will fix people, make things all better. So, next slide. So empathy then, when you define it, next slide, is the ability to imagine another's experience and their feelings in order to help gain a level of understanding of that other person. In the literature, it's talked about we have to understand the other person, and I kind of modified that because I don't think we could ever fully understand another person. But I think we need to try and imagine what that other person is going through, right? Next slide. But at the same time, though, we have to recognize that we have different feelings than they do. Right? There is a difference in our feelings and our perspectives from our patients, for example. So when you start adopting their feelings and feeling them, then we get into trouble. That's when we lose, our boundaries become blurred, and we become very enmeshed in the situation. So we have to try and understand what other people are going through, while at the same time maintain some boundaries. And recognizing how we feel about these things and what our perspective is. Next slide. So this is what empathy is not. The first thing, it's not about psychologizing. Okay, that's what I was just saying, trying to offer an explanation for things. So the second thing, it's not about agreeing with people necessarily. So an example of empathy that we see in our medical center on a routine basis is we have who I think are very empathic leaders, starting with Mary Kingston and her whole team. And she has to make very tough decisions, right? We've had layoffs, and of course we don't all agree with layoffs. Who does? Nobody wants layoffs. But I would argue that Mary and her team really does this really hard work with empathy. Not just sympathy, but with empathy and with thoughtfulness and with compassion, right? And these are decisions that not everybody agrees with, obviously. Next slide. So it turns out that we can train ourselves to try and more clearly understand other people, which then leads us to be more empathic. We can nurture this quality of empathy in ourselves if we focus on this. And that if we do that, then empathy helps train ourselves to then feel more connected to another person, to feel connected, to feel warmth, to want to help this other person if we start with the empathy. And then when it goes to that level, where we feel this sense of connection, then it leads to compassion. Does that make sense? So that's really where we're trying to get to. So there's two factors, next slide. There's two factors that kind of work against empathy, and those factors are potentially fairness and differences, perceived differences. So, it's hard to feel empathy for a person that's not treating you well or not treating you fairly, right? So if you have a patient or a colleague that's not nice to you, that is saying hurtful things, it's like, wow, how can I feel empathy towards that person? And the other thing is if that other person is very different from us. So the classic example in healthcare is, a person who doesn't speak English, doesn't speak the language that we're speaking. And we think, wow, they're so different, and it's like we focus on that. And then we feel like this disconnect. Because, wow, this is going to be a lot of trouble to get the translator phone and, go through that. It's going to take me a lot longer to do the things that I need to do. So what we need to do then to overcome these things is try to focus on similarities. So, because when we see somebody that's more similar to us, then we're more inclined to feel empathy towards that person. So even if that person doesn't speak English, that person could be a mother with children, and we can relate to that, or a father, or a grandfather. So one of the things that we need to try and do is see similarities in our patients and colleagues rather than focus on differences. Right? Does that make sense? So when we see that, then we're more inclined to feel empathy towards that person. At the same time, though, that doesn't mean that we disregard the differences. The differences are important, right? We have to acknowledge the differences while still seeing the similarities. All right, and then the second thing we need to do to develop empathy is to offer more kindness. So kindness is kind of like the engine of empathy. So it motivates you to care, it makes you more receptive to others, and it really helps you even in the most difficult circumstances, you know, where anxieties are high, there's a lot of conflict. You know, if you can see your way to kindness, the better you can empathize with them. So, to become more empathic, then we need to create a mind that instinctively responds to everyone with kindness and an automatic perception of others as being just like me. All right, next slide. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a mindfulness practice called Just Like Me and Loving Kindness. So what I want you to do first is stand up. And I want you to find another person in the room that you don't know very well or don't know at all. And we're going to do this exercise in pairs. So when you find that other person, then switch your chairs around so you're facing that person. And go ahead and sit down and face the other person. Let's see.
Do we stand or sit?
All right. Oh, we have 3. Okay. All right. Why don't you join a group that you don't know then, and just. Okay. Perfect. All right. Everybody's got a partner. Okay. So the first is a practice called Just Like Me, in which we remind ourselves how similar other people are to us, thereby creating this mental habit of perceiving equality. And then the second is a popular practice called Loving Kindness meditation, where we create good wishes for others and thereby creating the habit of kindness, the mental habit of kindness. And so we're going to combine these practices into one. So now take a moment to introduce yourselves to each other. And then during the meditation, I'm going to ask you to actually look at each other a couple of times, but don't worry, it won't be for very long, okay? The important thing is just to know that this person in front of you exists. All right, so let's start. Okay. Now just quiet your mind and okay. Become aware that there's a person in front of me, a fellow human being, just like me. Now take a moment to look at your partner Now feel free to look down or close your eyes. Let's consider a few things. This person in front of me has a body and a mind just like me. This person in front of me has feelings, emotions, and thoughts just like me. This person in front of me has at some point in their life been sad, disappointed, angry, hurt, or confused, just like me. This person in front of me has in their life experienced physical and emotional pain and suffering, just like me. This person in front of me wishes to be free from pain and suffering, just like me. This person in front of me has experienced many joys and times of happiness, just like me. This person in front of me wishes to be healthy, loved, and have fulfilling relationships, just like me. This person in front of me wishes to be happy, just like me. Now let's allow some wishes to arise. I wish for this person in front of me to have the strength and the resources to navigate the difficulties in life. I wish for this person in front of me to be free from pain and suffering. I wish for this person in front of me to be happy, because this person is a fellow human being just like me. Now take a moment to look at your partner again. Okay, you may now look down or close your eyes. Let's extend our wishes. May everyone here in this room be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they be at peace. Then think of those you love, family, closest friends, co-workers. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they be at peace. And if you'd like, I invite you to try extending these wishes further to neighbors, other friends, people who live in your community. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they be at peace. Then, if you're feeling really bold, see what it would be like to extend these wishes to everyone. May all beings be happy. May they be free from suffering. May all beings be at peace. Finally, to yourself, don't ever forget yourself. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. Okay. Now we're going to talk about this to each other. Next slide, Ann. So for those of you who had been to this workshop before, you know about the mindful listening practice. So this is where, go ahead and hit the bullets. One person talks and one person listens. So we'll make person A the person with the longer hair. And then person B will listen. So the idea is that person A talks for 3 minutes uninterrupted. So person B is not allowed to talk at all. You can nod, you can smile, but you need to listen. Okay, and then I'm going to ring the bell. We're going to pause, take a breath, thank the other person, and then person B will talk for 3 minutes, okay, uninterrupted. So the prompt is that you talk about what did this exercise, these concepts of empathy, what do they bring up for you? This exercise, this loving kindness, and just like me exercise, talk about that. If you liked it, you hated it, it was a waste of time, you can say anything you want about it, but you need to talk for 3 minutes. If you run out of things to say, that's okay, then you just sit quiet. The other person still has to be quiet, and person A is quiet until they think of something else to say. All right, and then at the end, we'll have 2 minutes of back and forth conversation. Okay, let's start. Okay, pause, take a breath, thank the other person, and now person B starts talking. Go ahead. Okay, pause, take a breath, thank your partner. And now we're going to debrief, you just talk back and forth in any order about what that experience was like, what came up for you. Go ahead. Okay, let's pause. Thank your partners. And now let's talk about this. Go ahead, next slide. So, how was this exercise? All right, you have to talk into the mic. Okay, Sharuz, go ahead.
Thank you. First, I want to ask a question I share with Mary. I have exactly the same question last night, maybe at 10 o'clock. I was thinking about what's the difference between empathy and sympathy. Honestly, last night, yeah. Because I use empathy for somebody. I explain I have empathy with him. I told this maybe 2 weeks ago to some person. And last night I think why I didn't use sympathy. And thank you. I was thinking last night, today I will go and Google it and find some answer. But yeah.
You can Google this.
Yeah, thank you.
On empathy.
Yeah, and the other thing we talked about, and I think we found similarities, in some situations like working place, I explained for her, it's not that I try, this is my nature. Whenever I go to some place, I try to say hi, good morning, something like that. But I don't know, maybe 80% of the others, when I say hi, they reply me. But if I don't say nobody, no, not nobody, 80% of them do not say that. And I don't understand it, and I maybe take it personal, and I say as an analysis, I think because I'm the last child in my household, I mean. And I have this problem in all my life. I mean, whenever my brother, big brother, has problem or he's angry, I try to fix things, and or my sister, and I feel I have this role in other places as well, because I'm new to the Providence, you know, it's maybe 3 months, and I don't think there's any conflict between me or any other person, but I don't know how to handle this. And I was thinking about some of these persons. I'm thinking when you explain, think they are like you. I was thinking maybe he's like me and he's more shy than me. I don't know. It's not that it's, but honestly, I cannot handle it. I have this challenge every day.
I think you have to keep saying hi to people, and they'll eventually get it, and they'll start saying hi back to you. All right, that's excellent. Thanks, Sharuz, for sharing. All right, other comments, questions?
Well, I'm way more comfortable. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I have a loud voice. I'm a lot more comfortable doing this exercise because this is the fourth one. I'm still shaking my head a lot, which a lot of women do when somebody else is talking. We're doing this the whole time. But I'm just way more comfortable, and I like the part of imagining this other person after looking at her and then closing my eyes and imagining and thinking of her. I want her to be happy and I want her to be healthy, and then taking it to the whole room. I can say this because I don't work here anymore, that when we went to go spread it to feeling, hoping that somebody's happy and healthy to the whole world, I could not get past one person in particular who I will not mention.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for being honest, Ellen.
Well, along those lines, it was very easy for me to. Oh, sorry. Along those lines, it was very easy for me to really feel like a lot of similarities and love with my partner, with the people here, and the world, believe it or not. And I actually went a little further to a few people who maybe I've not had pleasant relationships with, and I thought, could I take it that far? And I've felt like that's where I couldn't go still, and that was very hard. And I feel like that's where I need to work on. It's fairly easier for me to at work that I can see that, because I take that my job is as service. I'm here to serve. So I can make that disconnect. But I think the challenge I have is that if it's a friend or a loved one, I'm not here to serve. That's what I tell myself, and that's what I'm thinking. But I need to work on finding similarities. And I actually felt there was a friend who I always felt sorry, sympathy for her. So then there was anger. But now I'm thinking there are a few things that I could actually empathize. And it's amazing how I shifted my thinking. And that's my goal, to take that.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's amazing how your perspective changes when you look for similarities and you offer kindness, as opposed to just, sort of getting stuck on the differences and stuck on the perceived degree of fairness or not being treated well. It's easy to get stuck on that. We all do that, no question. So, hey, Marianne, you look like you are ready to say something.
What I thought about actually just now was last week we had a bioethics ad hoc consultation, which I was involved in and Glenn was involved in, and nobody else in this room was, but Rick, Rick was involved in it, and a bunch of other people, and it was a very difficult and challenging situation, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out where you were coming from on the whole thing because it all seemed so clear to me. I'm brilliant. But now I sit here and I think, okay, I'm sort of getting it, because it was really easy to jump to this person is crazy and terrible and awful and very bad and no good because of the situation of their family. But maybe they're just scared and doing the best they can, and which is what we all do when you have family members who are horribly, horribly sick. And instead of starting at they're terrible, awful, horrible, and no good, maybe we needed to start at, okay, they're in a horribly difficult and traumatic place. So I have a little bit better perspective about your position on that whole thing. So.
Thank you for saying that. It was a difficult ethics case. It was this elderly woman that's in our ICU that is clearly dying because different parts of her body are dying, and the son keeps wanting to do everything. And most of us feel like it's not reasonable that he's asking for aggressive treatments. He's asking for CPR on a woman who's dying in her 90s. And so the committee really felt like we should say no CPR, no more treatment, no escalation of treatment. And so I was just arguing that, let's try to look at this from the son's point of view. He's losing his mom. This is incredibly difficult for him. So thank you for bringing that up, Marianne. I appreciate that. But I let the majority rule, and so we wrote no CPR, no escalation of treatment. But I just wanted to bring up that alternative perspective about, from what the son is facing. So, Rick, maybe you have some comments about that case.
I just really think it takes in the whole piece of what empathy is about, to feel with. And Glenn and I had some long conversation afterwards. And it really is a place where, how can I connect with the other person? And we are trained to advocate for our patients. And that's where our mind goes instinctively, I believe. But there is the other part that says, this is the only journey for this son to take with his mother. And does he have the ability to actually even care for her? Is he strong enough? Is he emotionally able to do that? Is he physically able to do that, etc.? And to take that other side, which I don't normally go down that road, and Glenn knows that, and because I'm internally like, we have to advocate for the patient. And that came out loud and clear in our group. But it's the piece of how can I, at least in my mind, go, but what about that other person? Where are they at? Can I feel what they feel and maybe try to understand at some level?
Yeah, Carson, you were there. You have a comment?
Yeah, I want. The one thing I would add is if we're hoping to do the right thing here and get to some kind of a solution to this problem, the way to change a person, the only way to really transform somebody is to have empathy and come alongside them rather than just telling them what to do. And so empathy, I still disagree with you sort of in a way in terms of what was going on in that meeting, but the way to get there, the only way is to fully understand that person. And so I was very grateful too for what you said.
Yeah, thank you. You had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, as a fixer, I'm a Catholic priest, so all day is like listen to people, all they want is how to fix. And in that mood, empathy and sympathy is difficult to find the middle ground. But listen at this, I'm able to see sometimes empathy, when you begin to apply empathy, when you have someone pouring out their heart, they will misunderstand you. Why is he not saying anything? Why is he just listening? I'm here pouring out my heart and he's not saying anything. But at the long run, that empathy brings in the solution that you are right there with them.
I think some would say, by pouring out their heart, they're actually working towards a solution. That we don't have the solution for them. They have the solution within themselves, and giving them a chance to explore their feelings and their emotions, by listening and by your therapeutic presence is very powerful in that process. We don't have to fix it. It's not really in our power to do that. All right, any other comments? One last comment before we finish up. Okay, so your homework for this month is the connection micro-practice. And so remember we did the 3-breath micro-practice last time. So this one is 3 breaths. The first breath, just to settle the mind. The second breath is to see a fundamental human similarity. So this could be a challenging patient, a challenging colleague, challenging situation at home. But just take a breath. With the second breath, see a similarity. And then the third breath is offer kindness. Just 3 breaths, that's all it takes. So I encourage you to try this out. So have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you all for coming.